Aaron Rodgers losing his cool with rookie Kaleb Johnson on the final day of Steelers training camp is exactly the kind of moment that enlarges or clarifies a story, depending on what happens next. On its face, it's simple. A young running back ran the wrong route in a team period. Rodgers reacted loudly and visibly, and the interaction was noticed by everyone nearby. The wrinkle is everything that sits around that moment. Rodgers' legacy, the team's timeline, the fragility of camp chemistry, and the way veteran leadership translates into either culture building or culture busting. Rodgers has been a high-maintenance, high-reward leader for 2 decades. He demands precision. He doesn't tolerate avoidable mistakes, and when he sees them, he tells people about it. That pattern produced championship-level excellence in Green Bay and late-career individual successes elsewhere, but it has also produced splashy sideline confrontations. The Jets' red line dust-up with Mike Williams is the most famous recent example. For a 41-year-old quarterback on a 1-year deal in Pittsburgh, the stakes are obvious. Every rep matters, every practice counts, and there's no patience for sloppy execution if the aim is to get back to a contender's rhythm. For the rookie on the other side of Rodgers' ire, this is a scary but teachable moment. Kaleb Johnson ran the wrong route, a football mistake, not a moral failing, and Rodgers publicly chewed him out. That kind of correction is harsh in public, but can also accelerate learning. The message is clear. The error won't be tolerated in game conditions, and the rookie gets a vivid signal about NFL standards. Young players historically remember the moment more than the words. What matters is whether the veteran follows up with mentorship. If Rodgers pulls Johnson aside afterward, walks him through the error on tape, or helps him with technique and alignment, the moment becomes a learning accelerator. If it ends with lingering humiliation and no private instruction, it chips away at trust. From a Steelers organizational standpoint, the right playbook is straightforward, but not always easy. Protect the rookie while affirming standards. Coach Mike Tomlin's role is crucial. Tomlin needs to ensure that accountability isn't a free-for-all, that veterans don't publicly scold players that undermine coaches' messaging, and that emotional coaching is paired with practical help. Tomlin has long managed fiery characters and has been successful in drawing the line between passion and toxicity. The optics of Rodgers' outburst put pressure on Tomlin to show it's under control, that it's discipline, not bullying. There's also a roster and culture calculus. Rodgers' presence changes the tenor of camp. He's a perfectionist whose very expectations can raise the floor for others. But veterans and coaches must manage the collateral consequences. If Rodgers becomes the guy who publicly rips teammates every time a mistake happens, morale will fray. Younger players, many of whom are auditioning for jobs or trying to stay on the roster, may shrink from risk, avoid initiative, or start playing not to fail. That kills a locker room's competitive edginess. Pittsburgh needs a culture where mistakes are corrected, then corrected again in the film room and on the practice field with constructive follow-through. A separate dynamic worth noting is the domino effect on star relationships. Rodgers' intense sideline demeanor has been flagged before as a potential source of friction, most notably in speculation about how it could interact with elite personalities like DK Metcalf. The concern is real, but not inevitable. High-performing teams often contain strong-willed stars who clash publicly, yet still function together because of clear roles and mutual respect. The test for the Steelers will be whether Rodgers' leadership galvanizes Metcalf and the rest of the offense, or whether it produces rival centers of influence. Practically, here's what matters next week. Watch for Rodgers' behavior in the follow-up practice and subsequent joint sessions. Does he pull Johnson aside? Do coaches reference the incident and use it as a teachable film room moment? Does Rodgers temper his public fire with private mentorship? Also, watch how teammates respond. Body language matters. Do veterans back Rodgers, or do younger players look deflated? Finally, keep an eye on Johnson's reps and usage. If his opportunity to fix the mistake is immediate and supported, this will likely be a footnote. If he's ostracized or cut off from reps, it becomes a story about culture mismanagement. In the end, Rodgers' bluntness is a double-edged sword. It can accelerate growth or create fractures. For Pittsburgh, the highest probability positive outcome is the one where this moment becomes a catalyst. The rookie learns faster, practice standards rise, and Rodgers channels intensity into mentorship. The negative outcome is also simple to foresee: a string of public scoldings, slipping morale, and a sideline that feels less like a team and more like a pressure cooker. How the Steelers respond now, coaches, veterans, and young players alike, will tell us which path this team is choosing. Aaron Rodgers' temper flare-up with rookie running back Kaleb Johnson on the final day of Steelers training camp was brief, loud, and impossible to ignore. The kind of sideline moment that will live on in camp lore all summer. It wasn't a hushed correction. Multiple observers said Rodgers' body language and volume carried across the field, making clear this was more than a friendly nudge. The incident reportedly stemmed from a wrong route by Johnson during team period, a small but consequential mistake in a quarterback-centric offense where timing and precision are everything. Rodgers, a four-time MVP who has spent nearly 2 decades drilling fundamentals and expecting near-military precision from teammates, didn't hide his frustration. That reaction is part of what makes him who he is: exacting, vocal, and relentless about standards. Context matters. Rodgers is a new arrival in Pittsburgh on a 1-year deal, brought in to give the Steelers a win-now lift and immediate positional stability under center. He's also 41 and coming off injury and inconsistent play the last few seasons. That combination, veteran urgency plus finite opportunity, creates a pressure cooker in camp. Rodgers wants crisp execution now, and young players are fighting to prove they belong. In that environment, clashes are almost inevitable. Kaleb Johnson, a rookie adjusting to a pro playbook and the speed of NFL timing, was on the wrong end of Rodgers' ire. That's uncomfortable for a young player, but it's also a rite of passage. Coaches and veterans will often lean into these moments as teaching tools. Anthony hindsight aside, Rodgers' public corrections are rarely personal. They're a clear message about what he expects on game day. For Johnson, how he responds, whether he internalizes the lesson and bounces back, will matter more than the moment itself. There's a broader conversation underway about whether Rodgers' intensity helps or hurts chemistry. Critics point to past episodes, think of his clash with Mike Williams in New York, and worry about fractured locker room dynamics. Supporters argue that elite leaders demand the highest standards and that candid, sometimes brusque feedback can accelerate development. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff now have to manage the fallout, making sure accountability doesn't become alienation. For the Steelers, the ideal outcome is simple. Rodgers' veteran insistence on execution raises the bar for everyone, while coaches protect younger players from being publicly flattened. If the team can strike that balance, the episode will be remembered as a productive, if uncomfortable, learning moment. If not, it could become the first spark in a larger camp controversy. Either way, Tuesday's exchange made one thing clear. Rodgers is here to win, and he will not quietly tolerate sloppy football. Young players like Kaleb Johnson will be tested, and how they respond will be a key storyline as preseason moves toward roster cuts and the regular season.